American history story time. It's about the time Elvis met Nixon, convinced him to give him a make-believe federal narcotics badge, and used it to pull over an airplane to arrest a guy. That sounds just fucking ridiculous. Buckle up. The story is just bananas. Elvis was a Looney Tune. Just imagine the craziest stories about celebrities you've heard. Christopherson launching his career by stealing an army helicopter to meet Johnny Cash. Ozzy Osbourne snorting fire ants and biting heads off of bats. Zeppelin not only chucking zeniths off of hotel balconies, but when the desk clerk asked what it felt like to do that, they paid extra on their hotel damage bill so he could find out himself. Take all those fucking stories and it's amateur hour compared to the shit that Elvis was doing. Now, it goes without saying that Elvis was a bit eccentric. One of the weird things that Elvis did was he collected badges. And you might be saying, that's not weird. People collect all sorts of shit. Stamps, coins. Nope, Elvis made it weird. Because he collected them because he believed that because he had the badges, he also had the power associated with those badges. That's right, he thought he was Officer Elvis, not joking. Now, Elvis had all these badges from federal agencies and local police, but there was one badge he really, really wanted. A badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. But he just couldn't seem to get his hands on one, mainly because it didn't exist. There was no badge for the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. Elvis, one to never be deterred by reality, decided he was going to get one of these badges no matter what it took. The reason he really wanted this mythological badge is because he believed it would give him the mythological power to pretty much do whatever he wanted. Mainly believing it would allow him to get on any form of transportation and come and go from any country he pleased, carrying all the guns and illegal drugs he could carry on his person. He was just always balancing some combination of being higher than a dragon lady and more strapped than a BDSM convention. Definitely a stable mixture of things. And if you think I'm joking, he showed up to the White House with a gun and demanded to meet Nixon. Not kidding. All fairness to the story, he did write Nixon a couple letters beforehand and had them hand-delivered to the bodyguard saying he wanted to meet Nixon, and then Nixon, who was an awkward, crusty, uncomfortable old man who was not popular with the youngins, thought that, oh, this is my idea to show the kids that I'm cool and hip. And then Elvis showed up at the door of the White House with a gun. A gun he actually intended to give Nixon as a gift and could just not wrap his head around why the Secret Service would not allow him to bring his gun into the White House. I mean, it's not like a president hadn't just been shot in the head 5 years ago. After the Secret Service confiscates his gun, he strolls into the Oval Office in a purple velvet jumpsuit and aviators. Now Elvis is trying to be all nonchalant about the reason he's really there, which is the mythical badge, right? Nixon had just started his war crime on drugs, and Elvis saw this as an in. He's like, look here, tricky dick. I know a lot about kids and drugs from research and stuff. I could be like your ally, your inside secret agent, fight the war on drugs and help get your message out to the young kids and the hippies. Nixon's getting all excited. Oh, fucking dirty hippies. I was thinking we could put together an album or a musical and we could call it High on Life. No joke, a Get High on Life musical is a real thing that Richard Nixon pitched to Elvis Presley in the Oval Office. And Elvis was like, yeah, we could do that. And hear me out, you could give me, Elvis Presley, a Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs badge, and I will use that badge to go out and fight drug crime vigilante style like a really tacky Batman in a velvet suit. Might be paraphrasing a tad, but that was the gist of the conversation. And Nixon, without missing a beat, turns to his aide in the room and is like, can we get him a badge? And his aide, who's the only other person in the room to have witnessed this conversation, is like, they don't have badges, but I guess we could make one. Elvis left the White House with a badge that wasn't really a badge, but he thought it was a real badge that gave him unlimited power to do whatever you wanted. If you think that's the craziest story you've ever heard, well, hang on, baby Jesus, because it's about to get bumpy. Elvis has this entourage called the Memphis Mafia that tags around with him everywhere. And every member of the Memphis Mafia existed to make Elvis's life easier and make his unrealistic demands reality. One of these members was Hamburger James. So you'd assume a member of a mafia with a name like Hamburger James would have gotten their nickname because they beat people to hamburger. That was not the case. His job was to get Elvis hamburgers whenever he wanted. Elvis apparently had unreasonable demands for hamburgers at times when hamburgers were not readily available in the 70s, like 3 in the morning. So one day while they're on the road, Hamburger James is like, I've had enough of this shit. Elvis can take this job and shove it. And he steals some jewelry and some money and possibly some dirty pictures of Priscilla and heads off to the airport to fly back home to Memphis. He hadn't been gone very long, and Elvis notices his shit's missing, and he's like, hey, where's Hamburger Jim? And they're like, we don't know. And he's like, that old bastard, strap up, boys. So they grab all their guns, they put on their shoulder rigs and their holsters, and they go to the fucking airport. But granted, 1974 airport security isn't exactly what it is today, but still, a bunch of coked out drunk idiots strapped to the armpits just storm the airport, and nobody does anything. While they're doing this, they see a flight from Memphis is literally pulling out to the taxiway. Elvis walks up to the person at the gate who recognizes him because he's fucking Elvis. And she's like, oh my God, Elvis, can I have an autograph? And he's like, not now, honey. Official business. Flashes his make-believe Nixon badge and he's like, I'm a federal agent. I need you to stop that plane. And she does it. And his entourage boards the plane, finds Hamburger James, and kidnaps him, takes him off the plane by force, and brings him back to the hotel. Have you kept track of how many felonies have been committed so far? Because I have lost count. And then Elvis gets back to the hotel, he walks up to Hamburger Jim, and he slaps him twice, like this is the Godfather or some shit. Then Elvis starts crying. Elvis, through tears like a disappointed parent, is like, why didn't you tell me that you needed money? Why didn't you tell me you wanted to go back to Memphis? I'd have given you money. I'd have sent you home. Then Hamburger James starts crying. He's like, I'm sorry. I know what I did was unforgivable and I didn't mean it. And then Elvis was like, it's okay. I love you and you can have your job back. And he's like, no, I still fucking hate working for you. And Elvis is like, all right, well then here's a few weeks pay for your trouble and we'll get you a plane ticket back to Memphis. And that's the story. Elvis convinced the president of the United States, Richard Nixon, to give him a make-believe badge that he thought gave him make-believe powers to carry guns and drugs wherever he wanted to. Then used his make-believe Richard Nixon badge with its make-believe powers to take armed men to commandeer a commercial airplane so he could kidnap a guy off the plane who had just stolen from him, only to give him money and put him back on a plane and send him home. The moral of the story is drugs are bad, I guess, maybe? I'm not really sure. Make up your own moral.